us continue. So in the yeah, now it started recording. Yesterday's class we have seen these multiple facets of language, utterance and the meaning involved, and what organs are involved in language utterances, etc. Which Sashur mentioned in 4 points in that essay. Yesterday we have seen that. So firstly, he says that language or linguistic phenomena always present two complementary facets. So what are they? He says that one is the uh, auditory impression, and the other is the vocal organs, which is the physiological uh, function of our vocal organs. That means that our you have in phonetics, international phonetic alphabet, you have the chart, no? How you draw tongue, teeth, and vocal cards, etc. How all these are, important in pronouncing some sounds. So our auditory, our vocal organs should be function properly. Otherwise, you may not be able to utter any sound. So this is one aspect. One, we listen, and we can listen only when they are produced. Okay, and even if you produce it, if your auditory organs are not functioning properly, you will not listen. So there is a complementary connection with one another. So this auditory function and this vocal organ, the function of vocal organ should go together. This is what is the complementary function in a linguistic phenomena. And then in secondly, he mentions a few more aspects. Even if we ignore this phonetic duality means we should be able to pronounce the phones, that is sounds, and also we should be able to listen the sounds. Besides this, Sashur says that no, speech sounds are only the instruments of thought and have no independent existence. Here, another complementary emerges, and one of great importance, that is, a sound itself, a complex auditory articulatory unit, in turn combines with an idea to form another complex unit, both physiologically and psychologically. That means our listening and our uttering will not go without our psychological process of thinking. So this is what he says, that even if you want to ignore the what you call duality of phones, you have this psychological function. So one more aspect is added. And then the third, he says that language has an individual aspect and also a social aspect. Language at the same time is individual and also social. That means what? If a single individual cannot learn a language unless he lives in a society. So that becomes, it is an individual factor as well as a social factor. So one is not conceivable without the other. You cannot conceive the individual learning a language in the absence of a society. Without society, they can't. Yesterday, I have given you this example of Kamala and Vimala, who were taken away by wolves. In anthropology, this comes, and these kids being brought up by wolves in the forest could not learn language. So if you think that language is very natural process for human beings, how can you answer that these human kids which were who were taken away by the wolves cannot talk at all in the absence of other human beings? So there lies that language is a social phenomena. It is not only a social phenomena but individual also. So we cannot imagine one without the other. Both are complementary. This way, a linguistic phenomena is having so many complementary facets. And fourthly, he also says that language at any given time involves an established system and an evolution. So language is not a natural phenomena that has developed like that. You know, we can't say that God has created language. As you believe that all this creation is by God, of course we believe in God, but here we cannot take it for granted that language is God's creation. In that, we may get it out. If at all it is the creation of God, why there are so many n number of languages in this world? So there itself you can think this aspect from this angle also. So language is not natural, but it is a constructed phenomena which is an established system and keeps on evolving day by day. I always tell you in the class also that language is a very dynamic process. If it loses its dynamism, it is dead. The language is considered to be dead. If a language is living, means it will be evolving, you know. For every minute a new word will be joining the language, or old words will be removed from that, or the words may acquire new meanings, or you have this process of semantics which we call as generalization, okay, degeneration of the words, etc. So language is at a given time always an established system, and also it keeps on evolving. So these are the some of the angles Saussure presents to us in order to make us realize how complex a system is language. Okay, so these are the four things that he mentions. And he also says that at any given time, it is an institution in the present and a product of the past. So, of course, it has been evolving for generations. As I have mentioned the theories of language origin yesterday, and you also have answered that no single theory will give you a final answer for what you call the theory origin of language. So that is why he says that it is an institution in the present, but a product of the past. And at first sight, it looks very easy to distinguish between the system and its history, between what it is and what it was. So if we start reading the phenomena of language, or language origin, language development, language change, etc. First, Saussure says that it appears easy. Okay, yet it is not so. When you go into the deeper levels of examining the nature of language, origin of language, or change or transformation of language, etc., we'll realize the difficulty of defining things when we go into the deeper levels. That is what he also mentions in the rest of the paragraph. So till now, Saussure beginning the essay with the question, how complex it is to decide the object of study for linguistics. So, because if you take a word is not completely linguistic phenomena, because so many other aspects are also involved in that. So now, however, he says, you can just look into your textbooks. I am dealing with the page number 21, third paragraph, okay, after the fourth point. So, however we approach the question. So, actually, what is the question? The question Saussure has given in the very beginning, that is, what is that actual object of study in its entirety? Or what is it that linguistics sets out to analyze? This is the question. Saussure is a very popular linguist. So his area of study is linguistics. He is trying to define linguistics or confine the area of linguistics, because language is not completely a linguistic phenomenon. So here he says that the question itself is very complex. So in whatever way we approach this question of what is the object of study for linguistics, No one object of linguistic study emerges of its own accord. So, till now, in the 4 points that Sashur has given, you could have understand that language is not presenting or, projecting a single aspect. It is a combination of many aspects. That is what is here he is saying. No one object of linguistic study emerges of its own accord. So even if you want to study a word, not one aspect comes. It comes with many other aspects. Whichever way we turn, the same dilemma confronts us. Whatever way we want to study the object of study for linguistics, of course, it poses us the dilemma. Okay. Either we tackle each problem on one front only and risk failing to take into account the dualities mentioned above. So if you start reading the language at one point of time, if you take one aspect of language, there is a risk that you will be forgetting about the dualities that are already mentioned above, or else we seem committed to trying to study language in several ways simultaneously. Otherwise, if you think that psychology is important, physiology is important, anthropology is important, sociology is important, these are all linguistic factors or aspects of language. So the problem, if you don't define the object of study for linguistics, the problem is that you may try to read very less or very vastly about all these aspects of linguistic phenomena. Or there is a problem of reading the unconnected things also. Okay. So by proceeding thus, one opens the door to various sciences. If at all we are going to consider all the facets that Sashur has mentioned here about language, we see that we have many sciences to cover: psychology, anthropology, prescriptive grammar, philology, and so on. So philology is the study of language, and then psychology, you know what is it? Anthropology is the study of man, and prescriptive grammar, how we combine syllables or words to make sentences, etc., etc. So you by now you could have understand that language is not a single phenomena, but so many phenomena are involved in it. So Sashur says that these are all to be distinguished from linguistics. So, but a language is having all these facets, but we have to distinguish or differentiate all these from linguistics. These sciences could lay claim to language as falling in their domain, but their methods are not the ones that are needed. So all these sciences have their claim over language. See, imagine if your thought process is not what you call working, your mind is not in a normal state, means you cannot pick up a language or you cannot use language. So there itself, you will realize that psychology has also a role in learning language or using language, etc. And also anthropology, society and man. Okay. And then philology, how to study, and physiology also, our anatomy, etc. So all these are taken together, but he says that their methods are not ones that are needed. So, but when we come to linguistics, we need not study all these aspects of other sciences, which of course are involved in language acquisition process or language learning process or understanding process, etc. So he says One solution only, in our view, resolves all these difficulties. So he says that among all these facets, what is that we have to take care of as linguists? So he says the linguist must take the study of linguistic structure. So he says that the linguist has to do away with all the other facets of language and should take only the linguistic structure as his primary concern. So, what is the object of study for a linguist? It is the linguistic structure. I hope you are all following. Are you able to understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, what is the object of study for a linguist?
Linguistic study of linguistic structure.
Yes, it is linguistic structure and it is the primary concern. Yes, primary concern means what? Concern means what? We have to take care of the linguistic structure only. Linguists should take care of linguistic structure only, though many other facets are involved in language learning, language acquisition, language development, etc. Okay, and relate all other manifestations of language to it. Of course, all other aspects of language should be related to the linguistic structure only, because linguistics or linguists have to focus on language and linguistic structure. Indeed, amid so many dualities, linguistic structure seems to be the one thing that is independently definable and provides something our minds can satisfactorily grasp. Sashur says that, of course, amid all these facets of language or aspects of language, linguistic structure is one thing that is independently definable and it provides something our minds can satisfactorily grasp. We can grasp the what this linguistic structure is. You may get a question to define linguistic structure and the place of it in linguistics. Okay, according to Sashur. This part itself can be asked as a question. Otherwise, you may get a short answer or even essay question stating how Sashur explains the complexity of the object of study for linguistics. Defining the object of study for linguistics. You can note down these questions. They can be asked as questions for this topic especially. So I am moving to the next paragraph, which he begins with a question. What then is linguistic structure? So he stated that linguistic structure is the primary concern of the linguistics. Okay, as a science, linguistics as a science or a subject, and also for lay linguist who actually practices this. It is not, in our opinion, simply the same thing as language. So he says that linguistic structure is not simply the similar thing as language. Then what is it? Linguistic structure is only one part of language. So it is only one part of language, even though it is an essential part. So, because till now we have seen how many parts are involved in language learning or what you say, language using, etc., or language development. So, we have to understand that linguistic structure is not language itself, but it is one part of language and also the essential part. Okay, the essential part. The structure of a language is a social product of our language faculty. So now says the linguistic structure and language are not one and the same. Why he said that? He is saying that the structure of a language is a social product of our language faculty. So what are the language faculty, your mind, your auditory, and your vocal organs. And here he is saying that the structure of a language is a social product. Can you agree with this? Language is a social product. Please try to interact. Srinivas, Saujanya.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
Did you get why Sashur is stating that structure of language is a social product? Why do you think so? Actually, in yesterday's lecture, in my definition of, in my explanation of sign, signifier, and signified also, I have given you this.
Yes, ma'am. Meanings
Yeah.
of arbitrary.
Meanings are arbitrary. Of course, meanings are relational. And meanings are endless or difference is there. Of course, that is there. In there itself, you will get this aspect of social concept. Language as a social concept. How? It is a social product.
Because we use it for communication with others.
Use it for communication with others. Is no, simply by that reason it becomes a social product. Tell me. Come discuss, no problem. Even if you say something wrong, it is okay. How can you understand that language is a social product?
The individual use of language.
Yeah, use of language is another thing. But how is it a social product? How can you say that? Whereas you will never recognize this phenomena of language until, of course, we read the Sashut's aspect, because we think that language is always there for us and we are using that. See how it becomes a social process or a social production or a social product is like this. See, from your infancy, you have been picking language. Okay. So the language means your parents from childhood will show you that this is the phone, or this is paper, or this is cloth. Okay. Or you may say that this I have a ring on my hand and I can say this is a ring. Or your parents will show you rice and you will say this is rice, or vegetables, etc., etc. Then because in our society these things are given name like this is where you will get the arbitrariness. If I say that I will not call a rice as rice, or I will not call water as water, or I will not call paper as paper, what happens? Imagine what happens. Yeah. If I decide that I don't want to follow all other, what all others are doing, all others are calling this
Then
as
others will
paper.
not understand.
Yeah. What is it?
They may confuse.
Then others will not understand what our opinion or intention is.
Yeah, we cannot communicate or make others to understand. Okay, others to understand what I want. If I don't want to call rice as rice, and if I want to eat rice, how can I ask? And if I want to drink water and I don't want to call water as all others are using the same name, so if they won't understand that. Okay, so that means what? Language is a contract. We have social contract theory by Hobbes. Like that, you say people living in groups have come to an agreement that they will form a society and will live together. And let us not think that only forming societies is a contract, but language is also a contract. Okay, so that is where Sashur is pointing out that language is a social product. And of course, spoken, when you take the spoken part of language, that is a social product. That is why in Telugu medium schools, actually, kids are allowed only after completing 6 years. So, 6 years, by the time the child will be able to communicate with anyone in the society in a very easy manner, that he will be well versed with the spoken language, not the written. Don't take the written aspect of language into consideration. That is where linguistic structure comes. But as far as spoken part of the language is concerned, as a social contract, as part of a social contract of a particular group of people, which we call a linguistic group, the child will be well versed by the age of 4, or even by 3 itself. He or she will be well versed to use the language, because we made a contract that we should call this as a paper, or we should call water as water, or we should call crow as crow, or cat as cat, or table as table, or these as clothes, etc. So this is a contract. And that is why Sashur is telling that language, of course, the structure of a language is a social product. So now you understood why he's stating that the structure, how use words. You have, even in the written part, you will start with, you are learning your mother tongue as A for Amma, A for Avu, like that. So, or if it comes to A, B, C, D, A for apple, B for bat, like that, or boy, etc. Like that, the structure, first you will be taught alphabet, and then two words with 2 letters, or 2 alphabet, or 3 alphabet, and sentences with 3 words, like that. So the structure, of course, of a language is a social product of our language faculty. And keep aside the written language, the spoken language. All members of a group will agree with this contact of using the language code in this manner. If you deviate from the code, you cannot communicate with others, others cannot communicate with you. Thereby, you will be in a chaotic situation. To fulfill your needs, it is not only for communication. See, when you ask for something, you want to quench your thirst, or hunger, or you want to just communicate with others, etc. So it is not only for communicative purposes. Okay. So we talk not only for communicative purposes. It may have other what you say other aspects also. So sometimes we talk, we'll have an urge to have a friendly talk with others, or sometimes we want to have an argument, or we want to enter into some reason, etc. So language has many functions like this. So here, of course, Sashur is telling that the structure of language is a social product. I hope you got a good understanding of what I am telling you now. Did you understand why language is a social product?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am.
So, yeah, social product of our language faculty. Okay, then at the same time, it is also a body of necessary conventions. So, what is the convention? To call this as paper only, to call this as cloth only, to call this as a ring only, or these are spectacles, like that. So, this is the convention. As I told you, the social contract in a society, people will come into accept the convention of the language. So, like as I told you that when I told you yesterday that meanings are arbitrary, the sound cat has no relation to that animal cat. Yet we will be calling that as cat only. అంతే కదా, మనం పిల్లిని పిల్లి అంటాం, ఎలుక అనం కదా. This is a social convention. So this is what I told you as agreement adopted by society to enable members of society to use their language faculty. Why is it like this? See, the sound cat for us is meaning, the cat animal. But if it is not English, if it is some other language, the same sound may not mean the same animal. You got my point? There it is actually a convention. It becomes convention. It is the arbitrariness. Okay. Whatever sounds we are using to indicate one animal or one plant or one emotion, etc., may not be the same for other languages. Okay. Because we as a linguistic group, say for example Telugu, we have entered into a contract or a convention that we will call some things as like some plants as you say neem tree or you say people tree, etc., etc. You have those sounds. It is all convention. It will be followed like a convention. And he says, so why we have these conventions? Because it enables the members of society to use their language faculty. We have language faculty, our vocal organs, our mind, our auditory organs, etc. Combined together, of course, we can utter a word. So the language faculty, in order to be used by all members of a group, the group makes this as a convention. What is a convention? It is like a tradition, a practice. Okay. So language is a practice. Language in its entirety has many different and disparate aspects. This social aspect Sashur mentioned. Besides social, it has many, as I have been telling you from the beginning of this essay. It lies astride the boundaries separating various domains, as we have seen, psychology, physiology, philology, anthropology, etc. So like this, language, of course, lies on the side of many other sciences also. It is at the same time physical, physiological, psychological at the same time. Physical, okay. Physiological is our what you say, philological, also physiological are our body organs, and then psychological is our mind. Okay. And of course physical. Then it belongs both to the individual and to society. So this aspect we have already seen. It is if you think that I don't want to be a part of the society, or I don't want to use the same language all other members of my group or my society are using, you will be get lost. You can't talk with anyone. No one can talk with you, and you will face some difficulties. You know what? You can funnily imagine what happens if you stop using the language in the similar manner as others in members of your group are using it. So there, no classification of human phenomena provides any single place for it, because language as such has no discernible unity. So he says that even if we want to classify the human phenomena, you cannot find a single place for language, because language has no discernible unity. It has no unity. It is all conventional. It is a practice. It is traditional. It is a contract. And also some other aspects are there. Okay. A language as a structured system, on the contrary, is both a self-contained whole and a principle of classification. So he says, as a structured system, if you take language, it is a self-contained system and also a principle of classification. As soon as we give linguistic structure pride of place among the facts of language, we introduce a natural order into an aggregate which lends itself to no other classification. So he says that what a linguist has to do. A linguist has to separate all the what you say other aspects of language and should take only the aspect of linguistic structure. And of course, he says that it might be objected to this principle of classification that our use of language depends on a faculty endowed by nature. Of course, to utter words, we are using our vocal organs, mouth, etc. There is, say, an argument why only these organs are being used. So, our use of these organs won't make language as a natural phenomenon. Okay, so that is. They feel that any language, of course, is dependent on the endowed by this natural faculty. Okay, and he says whereas language systems are acquired and conventional, and so ought to be subordinated to instead of being given priority over our natural ability. Our vocal organs are natural, of course, because all humans will have these vocal organs, but like them, language is not natural. That is what he says. So we have to give, he says language should be ought to be subordinated to instead of being given priority over. Of course, our linguistic faculty or language should not be considered as a natural ability, something endowed, because in the absence of society, you will not get that. Okay, so you may be having mouth, maybe to eat, okay, or to swallow, etc., or you can make sounds, etc., but not exactly a language. So that is where you can again recollect this example of Kamala Vimala in anthropology. You can Google for that Kamala Vimala story in anthropology, where in the absence of human society, they cannot gain language, even though they are having all these vocal organs in a very natural manner. So what does it mean? It means that language is not as natural as our vocal organs are. This is, people believe that this is a natural faculty endowed by nature, or say, if not nature, God. Okay, it is God given, etc. If so, in the absence of society also, a human kid should be able to learn. Yes, Srinivas, dumb people cannot speak. That is true. Why they can't speak? Tell me. Srinivas, why they can't speak? Because they can't hear, of course. Even if you hear also, if you are not having the company of other people, you may not be able to speak. This is what Sashur is telling. So, like the natural faculty of our mouth, our ears, or teeth, tongue, vocal cords, etc., even if you are having that, language will not come naturally to you. So, that is how we have to understand that we cannot consider language as a natural faculty, but we have to we have to subordinate this to other things rather than giving priority. So one more thing says that to this objection one might reply as follows. No, this might be an objection. If someone says that language is as not natural as you think, as your vocal natural ability of what you say, natural faculty of mouth, etc. and all. So what is it? First, it has not been established that the function of language as manifested in speech is entirely natural. So that is where, as I told you, the function of a language as manifested in speech is entirely natural. That is not been established. So the function of language as manifested in speech, as now we speak and we think that it has many manifestations, it has many functions, etc. But till research did not establish that this is not natural. That is to say, it is not clear that our vocal apparatus is made for speaking as our legs for walking. See, our vocal cords, vocal apparatus, mouth, teeth, tongue, vocal cords, etc. They are not made only for speaking, that you all know, as our legs, say, for walking. Linguists are by no means in agreement on this issue. So there are many other arguments. Linguists are not able to agree or come to one agreement regarding this. Whitney is one linguist. He is William Dewitt Whitney, who is an American linguist and also philologist and a lexicographer. He considered language as a social institution. Actually, he studied Sanskrit, okay, and translated Atharva Veda into English, perhaps. And he was a professor of Sanskrit in Yale University. Okay, so Whitney, what he says, who regards languages as social institutions on exactly the same footing as all other social institutions, holds it to be a matter of chance or mere convenience that it is our vocal apparatus we use for linguistic purposes. So our vocal apparatus, we are using it as for our linguistic purposes. According to Whitney, it is only a matter of chance, he says. By chance, we are using that, or mere convenience. Of course, this is a great debate to which some agree and some may not agree also. Man, in his view, in Whitney's view, might well have chosen to use gestures. You know what are gestures? Thus substituting visual images for sound pattern. So visual images rather than sound patterns. Actually, in the theories of origin of language, critics or linguist scholars, they say that people before the invention of language used it to convey through gestures only. And later, of course, it became, we started using our vocal faculty. Okay, visual images, sound patterns. Whitney is doubtless too extreme a position. Saussure says that it might be a truly extreme position, for languages are not in all respects similar to other social institutions. Though language is a social institution, Saussure says that it is not similar to all other social institutions in all respects. To some aspects, it is certainly a social institution, but not in all aspects. Moreover, Whitney goes too far when he says that the selection of the vocal apparatus for language was accidental. Of course, Whitney says that selecting our vocal apparatus for making other sounds or uttering words or syllables, etc., is only a chance. Of course, he is very going into a very what you call too far extremes, two extremes. For it was in some measure imposed upon us by nature. Saussure says that the choice of our vocal organs for using language, according to Saussure, might have been by the choice of nature. Okay. But the American linguist is right about the essential point. One point Sashur agrees in victory. The language we use is a convention. We have discussed already. And it makes no difference what exactly the nature of the agreed sign is. So, language, of course, is a convention, and it makes no difference what exactly the nature of the agreed sign is. What is the nature of the agreed sign? It cannot be stated. The question of the vocal apparatus is thus a secondary one. Of course, we have to, Sashur says that linguists have to put aside this question of vocal apparatus as far as the problem of language is concerned. As far as the problem of language is concerned, we should not go into this vocal apparatus. This idea gains support from the notion of language articulation. So Sashur says that how he arrived on this point, this he says, he got this view from a notion of language articulation. In Latin, the word articulus means member, part, subdivision in a sequence of things. As regards language, articulation may refer to the division of the chain of speech into syllables or to the division of the chain of meanings into meaningful units. So he says that he took this idea of linguistic structure or from the language articulation, because in Latin the articulation means member, part, subdivision in sequence of things. Of course, you know how syllables are divided, or how words are divided in a sentence, or some words are put together. You know, when you are reading complex sentences, you should know where to pass. Otherwise, the meaning will not be very clear. So we need pauses when we are reading also the complex or lengthy sentences. We need to pause, and pauses are in Braille. Is Braille Lipi language? You want to say? Of course, we can't call it a language. It is a code. It's a code for the blind people, which blind people should have a separate way of learning language. So they have invented a Braille script so that they can understand language. Okay. And in Braille script, the words are as our words only. So script as such cannot be called as a language. It is only a tool to understand the language. Whoever have asked that question? Is it Srinivas? Why don't you interact? Who asked this? Yes, Srinivas. We can't consider the script as language, but the script is only to facilitate to, what do you say, to acquire language for the blind students, because normal alphabet cannot help them. Okay, normal alphabet and writing the script will not help them. Okay, then where did we stop? So he took it is in this sense that one speaks in German of Gagliardi's Parche, that means articulate speech. On the basis of this second interpretation, one may say that it is not a spoken language which is natural to man, but the faculty of constructing a language. That is a system of distinct signs corresponding to distinct ideas. So he says that he took this idea of linguistic structure from language articulation, which in Latin has the meaning of subdivision, etc. And he also took the German example of articulate speech. And he says that this articulate speech, one may say that it is not spoken language which is natural to man. But the faculty of constructing language is very natural to man. So that is the system of distinct signs. So how we develop signs? As I told you, all alphabet can be taken as signs. Okay. corresponding to distinct ideas. A sign, of course, corresponds to distinct idea. So, of course, when it is linguistic sign, we have a different structure because a single alphabet may not mean. Of course, if you say A, O, etc., they have some meaning. But in all instances or all situations, it may not help. We need a combination of different alphabet. But we have some cultural signs, okay, some traffic signs like red light. Red light is a sign where you need to stop. The green light is a sign, okay. Or you have this into mark with red color where it indicates that there is a danger, okay. Or you have this petrol can, the signal sign of petrol can, where you think you can understand that there is a nearby a petrol bunk is there, okay. Like that, we have different cultural signs or social signs are there, some signs for some ideologies, etc. So in today's class, what we have learned is Sashur is saying that for a linguist, linguistic structure is very important. And what is a linguistic structure, and how it is important for the in language acquisition, etc. And can we consider these our vocal faculty as a natural phenomena or not? So Sashur says that of course language is a social product and we have to consider it as a social product or social convention only, and we have to say that the faculty of constructing a language, that is a system of distinct signs, of course is important for a linguist, and a linguist should study that. For today's class I will close. If you have any questions till now, you can just interact. Do you have any questions? All of you, please, if you have any questions. Do you have any questions? Okay, no, okay. Try to read this part of the essay once again and try to listen to this lecture also. And if you have any, we will, of course, try to discuss in the next class. Okay, see all of you. Please inform all others also to join the class whenever they are scheduled. Please postpone all other activities when you have a class. Some people are not joining. This is not good. You did not turn up to the physical classes also in a good number. Okay. And we have to decide this elective aspect also. So I need that all of you should present to decide this elective. Many of you have opted for women's writing, but the problem is with the number. You are only 19 in number, and we can't take what you call all 15 in one side and 4 only on the other side. So please, all of you have a discussion and try to resolve it. We'll be offering ELT and women's writing. If not, translation study also we can ask, offer instead of women's writing. Whatever you want, you please discuss and let us know. Okay, right. Have a nice time.
Ma'am.
Yes, Chandu.
Ma'am, shall you conduct the online classes in morning time, 8:30 to 1 o'clock?
No, I can't take from 8:30 to 1. Okay, I'll be taking in the evenings only.